Somewhere right now, an analyst is watching 31 navies converge on Hawaii, and he is counting. Counting hulls, counting missiles, counting aircraft on the decks. And he is counting the wrong thing. The fleet he's watching is anchored around the USS Theodore Roosevelt. They call her the Big Stick, a floating airfield that carries its own city, outruns most of the ships sent to hunt it, and never has to come home for fuel. This summer, she leads the largest naval exercise on the planet, RIMPAC 2026. Look at that ship, and almost everyone thinks they're looking at power itself. The analyst certainly does. But the thing he should fear isn't the size of that fleet. It's something no satellite can photograph. And to see it, you have to watch a single moment unfold. A Spanish destroyer, hundreds of nautical miles from the carrier, picks up a target inbound. The question that decides everything is not, does the American carrier have enough missiles? The question is this: can a Korean ship at the edge of the formation fire on a target its own radar has never even seen? If the connections between those two ships haven't been stitched together first, the answer is no. And in that instant, all the steel we just admired becomes meaningless. The most powerful ship in that formation is still only one node, and a node that can't pass its strength to the network beside it is, in a fight, alone. Because around the Big Stick, there is not only an American fleet, 31 navies, 31 combat systems, 31 different languages of data. Placed side by side, that is not yet a force. It is dozens of very powerful ships that cannot shoot for one another. RIMPAC exists to turn that addition into multiplication, and this year, that multiplication reaches a milestone. This is Navy Decoded, and RIMPAC 2026 is the 30th time this alliance has gathered in the waters off Hawaii. Half a century ago, it began with 5 flags. This year, it stands at 31. That number doesn't just say there are more ships, it says the network has grown denser. So today we won't count ships. We'll trace the invisible link that wired 5 scattered nodes from the beginning into a network of 31, and why a network that has been closed is stronger than any missile sitting on a deck. Let's start with the simplest question, the one this entire video circles. Why hold RIMPAC at all? The familiar answer is deterrence and a show of strength. That's true, and we won't deny it. But think like an engineer counting cost. Hauling 31 navies with 31 different combat systems to the same patch of ocean for 6 weeks is enormously expensive and full of risk. If the only goal were to look strong, there are far cheaper ways. So there has to be another reason, a technical one, something only a real alliance can achieve. And that is the part worth digging into. To see that reason, we need to look at something the US Navy calls cooperative engagement capability. Normally, a ship can only fire on a target its own radar sees. The eye and the fist are bolted to the same hull. CEC severs that link. Instead of passing along processed information, it distributes the raw track data of a target across every node in the network. The consequence is that one destroyer can launch a standard missile at a target its radar has never seen, firing entirely on a track handed to it by another ship or by an E-2D Hawkeye early warning aircraft hundreds of nautical miles away. This is the core principle behind everything we'll cover today. Inside a network, the sensor and the weapon come apart. Any eye can guide any fist. That is multiplication written in silicon. But, and here is RIMPAC's real problem, CEC only runs when every node speaks one common language of data, one common track format, one common encryption, and one common clock. That shared clock is no small thing. 2 different radars looking at the same target. If the 2 sides don't agree on timing down to the thousandth of a second, the system thinks it's seeing 2 targets, 2 ghosts instead of a single threat. Inside one navy, that synchronization is engineered in at the factory. But across 31 navies, nothing is shared by default. A Canadian patrol aircraft can spot a contact that a Singaporean frigate is perfectly positioned to kill. Physically, the eye and the fist can do the job for each other. But if the 2 combat systems don't understand one another, that precious track arrives as nothing but noise. RIMPAC exists to stitch exactly that gap shut, to take the CEC principle from inside one navy to across 31 navies. In 1971, when RIMPAC was born with 5 flags, the problem was identical. Only back then they wired themselves together with procedure and radio, and now it's with digital data link. CEC shows us the destination, the eye apart from the fist. Now let's dissect the road that connects them, from the moment a target is detected to the moment it's struck, to see exactly where the link breaks when it has to run across a national border. Engineers call that road the kill chain. Every modern strike is a chain of links: detect, locate, track, decide, fire, guide, then assess. And a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Inside one navy, every link sits on the same data link. But in a coalition, each link can sit on a different country. And the interface between two countries is always the thinnest link. We don't know this from theory. We know it from a day in June of 1996 at RIMPAC itself. That day, a U.S. Navy A-6E intruder was towing a gunnery target so the Japanese ship JS Yugiri could train its air defenses. The ship's phalanx close-in weapon system locked on, and it locked onto the towing aircraft itself instead of the target behind it. Both aircrew ejected and were pulled from the water by Yugiri. No one was lost. But look closely at which link failed. It wasn't a data cable. It was the link of target identification and deconfliction between two navies. Which is friend, which is the target, which is the threat. When that procedure hasn't been drilled between two forces until it's reflex, the kill chain breaks right at the locate stage. And that is the most convincing argument there is for drilling first. RIMPAC exists so that link never fails again. So what does it actually take for one ship to fire on another ship's data? 4 things have to line up at once. 1. A common tactical data link. Link 16 is the backbone of NATO and its allies. 2. A common track format. 3. A common classification level both sides are cleared to share. And 4. Engagement authority delegated in advance, so no one has to phone for permission while a missile is already inbound. Miss any one of the 4, and the target survives. RIMPAC drills all 4, from tight formation maneuvers held at a 50-yard interval to trading target tracks in real time between ships flying different flags. Come back to the big stick to see this in the concrete. The air wing aboard the Theodore Roosevelt carries E-2D Hawkeyes, high-flying early warning radar. Why fly it high? Because a ship's radar is blocked by the curvature of the Earth itself. A cruise missile skimming the sea hides beneath the radar horizon, and the ship won't see it until it's far too late. Lift that radar up to the Hawkeye's altitude, and the horizon recedes by hundreds of nautical miles. The eye now sees what every surface ship is still blind to. But the longest-reaching eye in the fleet is only worth something when its track flows to the fist nearest the threat. And that fist could well be a Korean destroyer, not an American one. The Hawkeye sees, the Korean ship fires. The biggest stick in the fleet supplies the eye. It still needs the whole network to turn sight into contact. That is CEC running across the flags, and that is exactly what RIMPAC has to stitch. Now you understand why RIMPAC's scale is so enormous. Roughly 40 surface ships, 5 submarines, more than 140 aircraft, over 25,000 personnel from 31 nations. Each unit is a node that has to be stitched into the lattice. That scale isn't there to scare anyone. The reason is simpler. You cannot drill the connection of 31 nodes if you only have 5 in hand. Scale is the precondition for stitching enough, not the point of the show. But stitching the technical link is only half the problem. A ship can wire its data link and its commander still won't place the safety of his crew in another nation's hands. The other half, the part no cable can carry, RIMPAC 2026 just did something unprecedented to prove. By the usual thinking, commanding a coalition is the superpower's job. America holds the baton, everyone else falls in line. That thinking fit a unipolar world. RIMPAC 2026 turns it over. For the first time in the exercise's history, the Republic of Korea Navy holds the role of Combined Force Maritime Component Commander, a post no Asian nation has ever held. Rear Admiral Kim In-ho directly coordinates the multinational task groups, submarines, amphibious groups from the US, Canada, and Japan, and the very strike group built around the USS Theodore Roosevelt. Stop on that for a beat. The big stick opens this video as the symbol of American power. And at RIMPAC 2026, the combat formation around her answers to a Korean admiral. America isn't just sharing a data link. America is handing the controls of its biggest stick to the network. Here we need an engineer's definition of trust. A former Canadian air commander once put it exactly right. Trust isn't there from the start. If you can build it in an exercise, the relationships and the understanding you form make everything far easier when you have to do it for real. Put in engineering terms, in a coalition, trust is not a diplomatic statement. It is a variable that has to be measured under load. And RIMPAC is just about the only environment where you can measure that variable before a real crisis forces the question, when the cost of a wrong answer is beyond recovery. Why Korea and why now? Because Seoul is preparing to take back Wartime Operational Control, OPCON, with a target of completing it around 2030. For a 4-star Korean general to command the Combined Forces Command if conflict breaks out on the peninsula, Seoul has to prove it can lead a massive coalition force. The Maritime Component Commander role at RIMPAC 2026 is the stepping stone for exactly that. Korean defense analysts use that very word, a live test at real scale. And this is the proof of our whole argument. RIMPAC does not manufacture firepower. It manufactures the thing money can't buy, a distributed command network where authority is shared and partners are capable enough to hold the baton. America is weaving a lattice, not a hub with spokes, an alliance with no single center to cut, where the strength lives in the connections rather than in any one point. The link can be stitched, the trust can be handed over, but both remain assumptions until someone flips the switch and checks whether they actually run. And that is what RIMPAC does. Something no simulation, no conference table can replace. An engineer doesn't trust a system because it looks right on paper. He trusts it when it survives a test under real conditions. Everything we've said so far, CEC across the flags, the coalition kill chain, a chain of command held by Korea, is, up to this moment, still a hypothesis. RIMPAC is just about the only place on Earth that flips the switch and measures whether it runs, with real hardware, real targets, and 31 real navies. This is not a stage for show, it is a laboratory the size of an ocean. Look at its most famous test, SINKEX, the sinking exercise. The problem of whether one nation's weapon can kill a target serviced by another nation cannot be solved in a simulation. You need a real hull to shoot. SINKEX uses decommissioned ships as targets. At RIMPAC 2024, the Australian destroyer HMAS Sydney fired a naval strike missile for the first time, straight through the hull of the former USS Tarawa. In the same exercise, a joint US-Korean unmanned surface vessel launched the Poniard guided rocket. 6 rounds, 6 hits, a kill chain running with almost no human in the loop. Every shot returns survival-grade data. Does the weapon actually penetrate, and does the cross-flag kill chain close in time? And it runs in both directions. The Canadian frigate HMCS Regina fires the evolved Sea Sparrow Block II interceptor at targets flying low to mimic anti-ship cruise missiles, testing not whether you can land a blow, but whether you can survive one. The 2026 series, RIMPAC together with Valiant Shield and Atlantic Thunder, is slated to spend as many as 9 hulls on shoots like these. No laboratory on land keeps a 10,000-ton hull on hand to fire at. This lab tests the things no one is yet sure of, too. Across RIMPAC exercises, faculty and students from the Naval Postgraduate School bring metal printers aboard ship, cold spray and wire-fed directed energy machines packed into a 10-foot container to print replacement parts in the middle of the ocean. This is a test of a question that decides whether a fleet keeps fighting. If the supply chain from land is cut, can it manufacture its own components and stay in the fight? That is the very definition of a laboratory, putting an unproven capability into real conditions to take a measurement. This is the deepest answer to why hold RIMPAC. You cannot learn integration in the middle of a war, because there, every wrong assumption is paid for at a price no one can take back. The lab exists for exactly that reason, so every assumption gets flipped on beforehand, where the price of failure is 1 target hull and 1 lesson learned. And here someone will ask the sharpest question of all. If America is so strong, why share command? Why stitch these troublesome links to 30 other nations? Why not just fight alone? The answer lies in the nature of the lab itself. What RIMPAC puts to the test is the ability to fight together. And that test demands exactly the thing America alone never has on hand: the other 30 navies. America cannot test a cross-flag kill chain by itself because alone there is no other flag to run across. When real crisis comes, no alliance fights alone, so no alliance is allowed to drill alone. The question, why not fight alone, dissolves on its own, because the real fight will never be alone. 3 angles. The link must be stitched, the trust handed over, the assumption tested. Now let's step back for the whole picture and to see what all this firepower really does once the lab closes and every link has clicked into place. Don't get it wrong. The firepower at RIMPAC 2026 is real and formidable. The big stick earns her name. Korea's submarine carries ballistic missile tubes. The Aegis system rides on the ships of 4 nations. Every country brings a genuine capability. No one denies the strength of the individual nodes. The strength of any single node was never the problem. And look at how far those nodes travel to plug themselves in. The Philippines sends its newest guided missile frigate, and, for the first time, its Coast Guard alongside it. European navies cross half the planet to reach a Pacific exercise, some accepting real geopolitical risk on the way, because the sea lanes this alliance protects feed their economies too. 31 flags is not a number on a brochure. It is 31 nodes that each chose to be in the lattice. The problem is this: all that steel, if it can't be wired into one shared kill chain, is still only addition. The three tiers we walk through, the link stitched, the trust handed over, the assumption tested, are the machine that turns that addition into multiplication. And we've already seen the moment it draws breath, that very SINKEX in the lab a cycle ago. One nation's weapon, a target serviced by another nation, data flowing across the flags, one eye sees, and a wholly different fist strikes. Every RIMPAC repeats that proof at a larger scale. What we see in that moment is no longer dozens of ships standing side by side, it is a single organism. And RIMPAC 2026 does not stand alone. It links to exercises like Valiant Shield and Pacific Dragon, weaving a super network of tests across every domain: surface, undersea, air, cyber, and space. The kill chain is welded shut in every dimension at once. So what is the true cost of not doing this? It isn't the money spent to run RIMPAC. The true cost is the day crisis breaks out with the link unstitched, the trust never handed over, the assumption never flipped on. When one Navy's aircraft sees the target and another Navy's missiles can't act on it in time, or worse, a ship locks onto its own ally as one did in 1996. The difference is that in 1996, both aircrew were still pulled from the water. In a real war, no one gets to press pause. RIMPAC is the insurance paid up front, paid in fuel and a few target hulls today, so it doesn't get paid in something far costlier tomorrow. 30 times now, across half a century, the same waters off Hawaii have done the same quiet work, and this 30th gathering is worth celebrating for what it represents. 5 flags in 1971 have become 31. So raise a glass to RIMPAC at 30. What you are watching in 2026 is not a fleet getting larger. It is a network getting stronger. That is the whole answer. The largest exercise on Earth was never about how large it is. It was about whether 31 scattered nodes can be wired into a single mind. An alliance that can't interoperate is only addition. An alliance that has been integrated and proven is multiplication. The strength lives in the network, not in the center. Because in modern war, the strongest force is not the one with the most firepower. The strongest is the one where every eye can guide every fist. The question is no longer who owns how many ships. The question is this: when the crisis comes, at which national border does your kill chain stop?